On every major issue that Donald Trump counts on, the American people have rejected him resoundingly in 10 new polls that have just come out since Charlie Kirk's death, since the attack on Jimmy Kimmel. These are all post-Kimmel, post-Charlie Kirk, and some even post-Comey indictment polls, and they all are resounding failures for Donald Trump. I said it more than a month ago. Donald Trump was heading to break the 30% approval barrier, and he's almost there now. Quinnipiac says that 38% of the country approves of Donald Trump, and it's even worse issue by issue. 54% don't approve. AP, 39% approve with a 60% disapproval rating. Gallup, the same, 40% and 56% disapproval. Reuters, 41% approval, and YouGov 39 and 56 on things that Donald Trump says matters to him and the reasons that he was elected. On jobs and the economy, his unfavorable rating, favorable, unfavorable rating is underwater 15 points, negative 15 points. Healthcare, negative 20. Trade and the inflation, that's his tariffs, negative 30 points. On average, negative 12. The only one that he's doing marginally not as bad as the others is on immigration. And even that, he's 5 points underwater when it comes to favorable, not favorable. Now, Donald Trump and his minions live in a fantasy world where all the things that they're doing, wrecking global trade, wrecking the reputation of America in our global communities, attacking our allies, siding ultimately with Russia, using tariffs, which are the number one largest tax increase on Americans in the history of our economy, using tariffs as the bulwark of his foreign policy, not focused on inflation, job numbers down, consumer confidence down, prices up, inflation up, manufacturing down, goods and services down, agriculture in the crapper. And this is in 10 months, folks. He took what was a reasonably booming economy handed off to him by Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and turned it into this. Now, he says these are structural restructuring of the fundamentals of the American economy, and it's going to take time. That's not how elections work. And now as we move into the showdown with the Democrats over Wednesday, 12:01 a.m. shutdown of the government, which is becoming increasingly more likely, you can see where the poll numbers are headed. I'm Michael Popok. You're on the Midas Touch Network. You're here on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button. The poll numbers for Donald Trump have been sliding since their high point the day after he was elected and the day after he was inaugurated. From there, every day, unrelentingly, it's been a slide down to now having the worst poll numbers of any president in office in his first 10 months. And he says, I don't believe the polls. You heard Donald Trump, in fact, in his magical thinking world, as he was heading to the helicopter the other day, say out loud, I think the economy's strong. We're doing great. Inflation is down. Jobs are up. Economy's great. Let's play the clip.
Mr. President. Well, we're going to see, but the radical left Democrats want to shut it down. I mean, it's up to them. We have a great economy going. You saw the numbers yesterday. They're fantastic. The economy's doing well. Prices are down. We have virtually no inflation. Everything's going good. We're respected by every nation in the world. And you know what happened? The Democrats want to shut it down. And they want to shut it down because they want to give billions, ultimately trillions of dollars to illegal migrants, people that came into our country illegally. Some of those people are criminals, but they came into our country illegally, and they want to give them the essential, over years, trillions of dollars, and our people aren't going to stand for it. They also want to have open borders. They want to have men and women's sports. They want to have transgender for everybody. These people are crazy, the Democrats. So if it has to shut down, it'll have to shut down. But they're the ones that are shutting down.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you is a demented, mad king commander-in-chief who is burying his head in the sand, and he is fiddling while America burns. Now, I had worried a bit, and I wanted to see the polling post-Charlie Kirk, because there was a group in America, and I definitely gave space for them to grieve for their fallen idol. And I was wondering how that would be seen by the rest of America, like the people who didn't go to the memorial in the football stadium for Charlie Kirk. And then I wanted to see in the polling how Donald Trump creating a martyr, not out of Charlie Kirk, but out of Jimmy Kimmel, by trying to go after First Amendment expression and overplaying whatever hand he felt he was dealt with Charlie Kirk's demise, how that was going to play out as it kind of filtered through the water supply. And now we've got the polls are in. Polls are in. Where should he be? Well, if you want to use the past as any indicia, George W. Bush was pushing 80% at this point in approval rating in his administration. Sure, he had the Gulf War going on, but he was at 80. Obama, 60%. Yeah. Even Joe Biden was about 10 points higher than where Donald Trump is right now. Again, this is lower than where he was in his first term. This is lower than any modern president. Can he turn it around? Now that we're busy patting each other on the back because finally America and a majority of America, I mean, when you do the poll of polls, the average of all polls, his average is 42% approval, 54.5 disapprove. That means a fair amount of MAGA and Republicans are disapproving with the president. He's losing his base. You know, which thing is it that caused him to lose and have these numbers? Or is it all of it? For some voters, it's his inhumane attack on immigrants and migrants, going so far as to arguing to the United States Supreme Court that birthright citizenship should be eliminated from the Constitution. That doesn't sit well with many, many people. Maybe it's his assault on due process and the rule of law, taking away people's rights, keeping them in jails and in detention centers without seeing the light of day, sending them to third countries to be tortured. Maybe that. Maybe it's the impact on people's pocketbooks and purses and checkbooks and wallets, kitchen table issues, which usually drive numbers like this. Maybe it's the fact that when you go for fruits and vegetables, they're up 30% since Donald Trump's been in office because of his tariffs, because we're not trading with Mexico the way we used to. And all of those tariffs now are being passed through. They weren't originally in April, but they are now being passed through to the consumer, creating the largest tax increase in the history of America. Maybe it's that. Maybe it is his efforts to shove down our throats the Christian rights platform. Maybe it's giving power to Stephen Miller to effectively run his administration, to be in charge of firing weapons on people who we usually presumed innocent in the waters of the Caribbean and blowing them out of existence without due process, led by apparently Stephen Miller. Maybe it's separating families and putting children in cages. Any one or all of these things would have the impact that we just talked about. Even on his main issues, he is underwater unfavorable by between 15 and 30 points. Joe Biden lost with Kamala Harris. One of the reasons he lost is because inflation was creeping up or hadn't been sufficiently brought down after COVID. You know, when you put $3 trillion through the economy in a stimulus package in order to restart the heart of a dead economy after COVID, you know, you're going to get a little bit of an inflation problem on the other side, especially when you can't directly coordinate with the Federal Reserve. That's another factor. Perhaps people don't want to see our Federal Reserve bashed out of existence and Donald Trump take control of the interest rates because they don't believe Donald Trump. There's a credibility problem with Donald Trump. You can't believe a word he says, and it's caught up to him in the polling. His credibility internationally with the way he addressed the United Nations, the way he insulted diplomatically or otherwise our allies, Brazil and Britain and Europe and the rest, from the bully pulpit of the UN, when he needs the United Nations. Let's be frank, he needs the United Nations to do many of the things he wants to accomplish globally. And all this has now come home to roost, right? So what do the Democrats do with this? You have to use this. The last good news that came out of the polling is that when you took a generic Democrat versus a generic Republican in a race for Congress or Senate, the Democrat, without a name, got about 46% to 42% for the Republican. So even as much as Donald Trump has tried to bash and damage the Democratic brand, it's still 6 point up on the average Republican. And now we move to the midterms in about a year. Things could change between now and a year. Something that could bring the country together in supporting Donald Trump, not Charlie Kirk, some sort of external war. Got to look for Donald Trump to try to wag the dog and start a war. Every time he has a bad news cycle, he does something crazy and outside the norms and violative of the Constitution, gets stuck in an escalator, let's invade Portland, Oregon. Yeah. one of his lackeys, big balls, gets jumped in DC. Let's take over District of Columbia. It's always a distractor. Bad news week with Epstein and Europe and a lot of his tariff policies. Let's indict James Comey. It's always a distractor. He knows he can't win these things, but he thinks he's already won because he gets those major headlines, right? Criminal probe opened against Adam Schiff, Letitia James for mortgage fraud. He's already thinks he won, even though the case will never go anywhere and will not lead likely to a conviction. James Comey, former FBI director, indicted for perjury. He's already got his headline. Move on to the next story. But the polls are a sticky thing, right? Because they catch that voter. This is about, across all the polls, about 10,000 voters or so. They catch that voter at that moment. Wait till we see the question by question polls. How do you think he handled after Charlie Kirk? Do you think he brought the country together? Do you think he was vindictive? How do you think wait till the polling comes really out after Comey was indicted with this BS perjury indictment. But things are trending terribly for Donald Trump, and it's a good sign that Americans are finally getting it in large enough numbers to matter. We'll continue to bring you the news here without smoke or sunshine. You're here on Legal AF already. Hit the free subscribe button. I apologize, I'm a little bit under the weather. Come over to Legal AF, the Substack, do the exact same thing, and think about becoming a paid member. That's what keeps us on the air. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states. lawsuits and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.